He needs no introduction, but we're still going to throw to a reel in a second. But I mean, let's take a look at some of George's work before I bring him out. Okay, let's throw to this reel. Stage and screen. He is also a social media icon and a social and political activist, and one of the great voices out there that we have fighting the good fight. I want you to make some noise. I want you to bring the house down for Mr. George Takei!
I love you back. Oh, it is so wonderful to be back here with all of you in Orlando, Florida. 18 months. For 18 months, I had no connection with the fans of Star Trek and the Terror and Allegiance and all these other things that you just saw on screen. It is so wonderful to be connected with all the fans again. And what have you all been doing for the last 18 months? Same thing. Hibernating. And when it first came down, I thought, what am I going to do with myself? And I said, it's wonderful. Everything is an opportunity. I thought, well, I'll write another book. And so I just finished another book, which is being prepared as a graphic memoir. What I have out right now, They Called Us Enemy, is what they call a graphic memoir. It's a story of my childhood. When I was 5 years old, 120,000 Japanese Americans on the West Coast after Pearl Harbor were considered the enemy. We're Americans. We had nothing to do with Pearl Harbor. My mother was born in Sacramento. My father was a San Franciscan. My brother and sister and I were born in Los Angeles. We're Americans. But suddenly, all of America looked at us as if we're the enemy. And you all know what happened to Asian Americans in recent times with the pandemic. They were seen as carriers of disease by the president who kept using the term Chinese virus or Wuhan virus or Kung flu. We're Americans. We had nothing to do with that. And yet, innocent Asian Americans were attacked and spat on. You all read about it in the papers, haven't you? And so the same thing that happened to me when I was a child was happening all over again, because we don't learn from history. And so I wrote, They Called Us Enemy. Before that, I wrote an autobiography called To the Stars, which involved Star Trek. And that came out in 1994, before some of you were born. And I wanted that story to be known by young people of our times today. And so I said, how do we target that audience? When I was a teenager, I loved comic books. And at that age, when you're young, you're absorbing in every information from all around, through your pores, and it stays with you. And I thought, this is a way I want to tell that story of my childhood. And that's been out now, as many of you have it, and I've had the opportunity to autograph it for all of you. The title is They Called Us Enemy, because the United States government did call us the enemy. And so that came out right before the pandemic in 2019. I mean, 2019. I'm an old guy. I'm a 20th century guy. And a good number of you are 21st century people. And so I still have been beginning to sign checks with 2019. And so that book came out in right before the pandemic in 2019, and it's been selling like hotcakes, proverbial hotcakes. I was on the New York Times best-selling list for 19 weeks. Thank you very much. And that's also thank you to all those of you who bought the book and spread the word on it. And I've got it at my autograph table too, for those of you who haven't gotten it yet. But I decided to write another book. And I finished it, and now I've turned it over to what they call bloggers, people that break down the story in terms of patterns. And then it goes to the artist who draws the pictures. And so it won't be until late 2022, or early 23 when that comes out. But watch for that. And in the meantime, start reading They Called Us Enemy. But I have been busy and using that pandemic time for creative purposes. And now I'm back, and it is wonderful. And this is the way it used to be before the pandemic. And it is so wonderful to be together like this for a weekend. 18 months. The last convention I did was in Chicago in February of 2020. Chicago! Give Chicago a hand. Great city. Did you fly in from Chicago for this convention?
Yes.
Good for you. Well, I'm going to be flying over to Chicago in a few more months for another convention there. You've got a great city there, and Orlando is Disneyland. Well, so is Southern California. We've got Disneyland, and you've got Disney World. And so we have all these destinations, and I'm connecting with all the fans all over the country. And I'll be going in November to England to speak at, have you heard of Oxford University?
Yes.
Why don't you give yourselves a vacation in London in November and come on over to Oxford and go to one of my talks there. I'll be talking on my childhood imprisoned in American barbed wire prison camps. And it seems in England there's a sense of competition between Oxford and, you know, the other school, Cambridge.
Yeah.
I first went to Cambridge, I think about 4 years ago, and I spoke, and there's that competitive tension between Oxford and Cambridge. And about 2 months later, I got a call from Oxford to do this same kind of speech.
Oh, funny.
And right before the pandemic, I spoke at Cambridge again. And guess what? Oxford University wants me to come over. So I'm going over in November to do that. So I am already planning a very busy schedule after 18 months of not connecting with all of you. So you might look out for a feature film, animated feature film called Blazing Blazing Samurai. The title left me a second ago. It's made by the same people that did Blazing Saddles. If you saw that. But this time it's an animated story. Same kind of humor, but animated. And how many of you saw the Japanese film Yojimbo?
Yes.
Good number you saw that. Well, it's a takeoff on Yojimbo, but this time it's with cats. A civilization of cats. And the lord of this area is the Lord Cat, the fat cat. And he's built a fantastic palace on a mountaintop. And there's a village that ruins his view. You know, very shabby-looking huts. And he wants to get rid of all these people. But the village doesn't want to move. And so the village decides that the Lord is going to make this move come hell or high water. And so they hire a village guard, a powerful, very savvy, very strong samurai. But the samurai happens to be a dog. You know about cats and dogs. And so the dog is hired by this village of cats to prevent the Lord, the evil Lord, from destroying their village. And I'm playing the lieutenant to the, not the lieutenant, the general to the evil Lord. This voice can be evil. So watch for Blazing Samurai, and the Lord's voice is done by Gervais. Who's that?
Ricky Gervais.
Ricky Gervais is the Lord. That high-pitched voice with a British accent. I work for him. So watch for that. That was done actually during the pandemic. The wonderful thing about technology today is you can work from home even as an actor. They have this system where I can act. Brad, my hubby's fixed up a home recording studio. So I can do the recording for Blazing Samurai right from our home, so I don't have to get dressed. It's all just my voice, you know. So I'm in my pajamas, or sometimes they want meetings, so I'm half dressed here up, and I've got my pajama pants on.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So technology is wonderful, but technology has downside too. We know about the downside, and we've got to be able to control that. But the positive side is it's made life so much more comfortable, and we can work from home and record as a samurai general and not leave the house at all, not bring the car out. And the amazing thing, isn't it, with when the pandemic came, these major boulevards in our cities were like our private driveways, not a car there. And so traffic was non-existent. And it seemed the lawns and the trees and the flowers seemed to revel in that. The grass was greener and the trees were lusher, and even the birds and the bees were happy. They were singing and doing what birds and bees do, propagate. And so the positive side of a horrible thing is COVID is a terrible pandemic, but we can use the benefits of quarantine. We know that we can make the air cleaner. the Hollywood Hills look far away from our backyard, but with the air so clean, the Hollywood Hills seem to have moved closer. So those are the wonderful thing about having a situation where people don't use their cars. But now the cars are back and the air is the old air again. But the price of what we're doing is very high, very high. And we're in California, we have these horrific wild
Oh, yeah, Dixie.
fires,
Yeah.
forest fires that are burning up whole towns. And it's happening in Europe as well. Greece has all those mountainsides burning up. And you folks here in Florida, you know the real estate price is going to go down because Florida is going to be covered with water. Well, you've got a lot of water already.
Tons of water. We got
Enjoy it while you can because you're going to have to be swimming.
We're gonna sink.
What?
We're gonna sink.
You're going to sink. Or the sea's going to overflow and cover up all the land here. So there's a positive of technology and the negatives of technology. And so we've got to be using our noggins and preparing for the changes that are going to come. So Star Trek was, Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek, envisioned a future for all society, which envisioned a positive side to humanity, that we use our brains and our humanity to make our society an even better one. And Gene Roddenberry thought there's so much happening today, or back in the 60s when Star Trek first came on, and he wanted to use television to make some commentaries on those situations. We had the civil rights movement going. We had the Vietnam War going. We had all sorts of issues that was tearing this country apart. And he wanted to make some commentaries on it, but the networks didn't like it to be too realistic. So Gene came up with the idea of putting Star Trek in the 23rd century with all the amazing technology. But the amazing futuristic technology that we had on Star Trek is kind of passé now. We have advanced so fast that, you know, that amazing device that we had, for some of you it's not amazing at all. Back in the 60s when Star Trek first came on, we walked around all over the Starship Enterprise wearing this device on our hip. And whenever we needed to contact somebody, we tore it off, flipped it open, and started talking. That was incredible in those days. Because if you were out and needed to talk to somebody, you had to find a telephone booth and then drop some coins in, and then you could talk. But on the Starship Enterprise in the 1960s, wherever we went, we had this telephone with no cords on it and started talking.
First cell phone.
The first cell phone. In fact, in reality, the first cell phone looked like our communicator, didn't it? The flip phone.
Motorola flip.
We're past that now. That's old-fashioned, the flip phone. So we keep progressing. And Gene Roddenberry's vision was the Starship Enterprise is a metaphor for Starship Earth. And he said the strength of the Starship lay in its diversity. Each person in his or her own unique difference, background, faith, experience, culture, coming together, working as a team, and boldly going where no one had gone before. And so the Enterprise was a metaphor for Starship Earth, and it was the diversity of this starship. Someone from Africa, Europe, North America, and Asia. We had a woman from Africa named Uhura, played by an African-American woman, Michelle Nichols. Beautiful woman, an intelligent woman, and for many people it was an amazing role because it was the first time that an African-American woman, no, not an African-American, an African woman was in as a part of the leadership team of the Starship Enterprise. Europe was represented by a Scotsman, an engineer, played by Jimmy Doohan. My favorite drinking buddy. And I've learned a lot about drinking from him. Scotty, the engineer. North America was represented by the captain, Captain Kirk, played by a Canadian, not an American. And Asia was to be represented by this Asian character. But Gene Roddenberry had a problem with the name for this character because all Asian last names are nationally specific. Tanaka is Japanese, Wong is Chinese, Kim is Korean, and 20th century Asia was turbulent with warfare, colonization, rebellion, and he didn't want to take sides. He wanted to find a name that suggested all of Asia, how to find that Pan-Asian name. And he had a map of Asia pinned up on his office wall, and he was staring at it, and his eyes roamed to the South China Sea, and he saw near the Philippines a sea called the Sulu Sea, and he thought, the waters of the sea touch all shores. And that's how my character got to have the name Sulu.
That's amazing.
That's how
I love that.
Gene was thinking. And so he came up with the phrase, infinite diversity in infinite combinations. All these people from different parts of this Starship Earth working together as a team. And that's what made the Starship Enterprise so unique and so powerful. And we were able to boldly go where no one had gone before.
Woo!
Yes.
That's awesome!
That's Star Trek. And so Star Trek was off and running the first season, 1966. 19 was right. But we were very low rated. However, the kinds of fans that we reached were unique fans. They were activist fans, and they started lobbying for Star Trek to be renewed. And their campaign was so effective that we were renewed for a second season. And even with the new writers that we got on for the second season, our ratings weren't too good. And so they increased their numbers, led by a woman named B. Jo Trimble. Some of you may have heard of her. She led that charge, and it was so massive and so successful that they gave us a third season. But yet, that wasn't enough. And so we were canceled. Would you believe that next month, September, on the 6th, Star Trek will be celebrating its 55th anniversary. And the reason for that is all of you, the fans. The real strength of Star Trek was because of the dedication and the determination and the relentless determination to keep Star Trek going. And because of that kind of fan support, even after we were canceled, Star Trek became a sensation. As a matter of fact, it became a hit after we were canceled. Because we were canceled, the rental was cheap. So in syndication, they were able to show it not only one night a week, they screened it 5 nights a week, Monday through Friday. And that's when we found our audience, all of you, or your parents, or your grandparents. And the ratings soared. And so because of that, 10 years after Star Trek was canceled, it was revived as a major feature motion picture. And we've been coming at you every 3 or 4 years with a brand new film. Yes, give yourselves. You guys are the ones that really made Star Trek the incredible phenomenon that it is. Next month, on the 6th, 55 years. But a couple of weeks ago, although Gene Roddenberry, the creator and visionary for Star Trek, has already passed, we celebrated what would have been the 100th anniversary, the birthday of Gene Roddenberry. So, you know, what the gift that you guys have given us is something very special. And the idea and the vision that Gene Roddenberry created has, thanks to all of you, lived long and prospered. So I've been talking, and now I'd like to have a conversation going. I see that they've got a mic there and a mic here. So let's begin the conversation. Those people that have thoughts to share or questions about any part of Star Trek or anything else that I might be able to answer, I'll try to answer, or if I don't have the answer, I'll make up one. Let's start with this side.
Hi, my name is Debbie, and I just want to say I appreciate every active thing that you've done.
Thank you.
And you were so awesome in Star Trek, and you were so awesome. I'm actually on your Facebook and your YouTube and stuff, and I love it, and it's wonderful, and you're a great philosopher.
Oh, thank you very
I
much. I got to return the compliment. You've got good taste.
Thank you. But you're so well loved and appreciated. Okay, so thank you so much.
Love you right back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now this side.
Hi, I'm Kotha, and I just want to say thank you first for your books and your willingness to speak about race, diversity in all its forms, religion, orientation, everything, because the more people focus and see, just seeing the outer appearance doesn't really tell you what's inside.
That's right.
And my question is about your time on Star Trek. I was a big fan growing up. I'm one of those kids that I'm grandma who watched growing up. What was your favorite episode or scene as Sulu?
From the television series, my favorite episode is, I think all of you suspect the same thing, is Naked Time. When I appear half naked with a fencing pole and terrorize the Enterprise. I had so much fun with that episode. I mean, after episode, there I am, chained to that damn console. Episode 3, you know, that gets boring after a while. And I am so glad they liberated me.
I just want to much for your bravery to talk about all the experiences you've had. Sorry, just a little bit nervous.
Don't be. We're all your fans.
I just wanted to ask, I know you transitioned from acting to voice acting. What made you make the transition from Mulan to Adventure Time and all those things?
Work. No, I do acting too. On stage and in front of the camera. I go where the work is, and I enjoy working with my voice as well, because I grew up, I'm of the radio generation, when we didn't have television or streaming shows. You know, the only access to entertainment that we had was the movies, where you went to a theater and bought a ticket and sat down and saw a movie, or listened to the radio. I grew up on the magic of the human voice acting and sound effects, like cowboy shows where they made the horse hoof sound with empty coconut shells, and all sorts of sound effects. I was fascinated with the radio drama, and an actor's voice was what told the story. And some actors had the power to change their voice completely, from a high-pitched character to a stutterer or a deep voice. Amazing. And so, you know, acting isn't just the physical acting on stage, but also how one makes sound, both sound effects and the sound of the voice communicate. And so I do that still, because we have cartoons like Blazing Samurai and other animated films. But I love the theater as well. And we create, and one of the mission in my life is to tell the story of the incarceration of Americans of Japanese ancestry, right, during the Second World War. We were seen as being responsible for Pearl Harbor, which was absolutely ridiculous. But the combination of ignorance and racism and war hysteria makes people do crazy things. And they rounded all of us up and put us in those camps. As an American, my mission is to have as many Americans understand that history. And so that's why I have the book, They Called Us Enemy Out. That's why I wrote To the Stars. That's why we developed the musical Allegiance. And this book that I just finished touches on the internment story as well. So I have these various missions, and as an artist, I want to tell that story in as many different forms and shapes as possible. And those of you who missed Allegiance on Broadway, we're in conversations to revive it in London on the West End. Wow. So I'll let you all know when we we accomplish that. And give yourselves a vacation in London, and at the same time come see Allegiance. And I have this other book coming out, which is either at the end of 22 or the beginning of 23. And I'd like to give you the title, but the publishers want to make the announcement first. So, they want to put out a news release, press release, so that all the media knows it at the same time. So I got to keep my mouth shut on what it's about and what the title is. But what is out is They Called Us Enemy, and that's about my 5-year-old me being in prison in American barbed wire prison camps.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi. I would like to ask you about your involvement in Star Trek fan productions and how your involvement in those came to be.
Well, as I said, we have a fantastic, determined, passionate fandom. And some people are very, very determined. And they're very clever. And this, I call him kid, he's probably in his 30s now, late 30s, in upstate New York, during the Depression of 2008, I think, a lot of the businesses in his hometown went down, and the car dealership went down. And so what he did was he bought the real estate of the car dealership and turned that car showroom into a soundstage and built a replica of the Starship Enterprise. And then he bought one of the scripts that the studio, Paramount, already had developed and decided to film it. And he bought that script. He sent it to me. It was a wonderful script written by a very talented writer. And he wanted to use his Enterprise set to film that script. What he did, by that time, we were living in the age of the global internet, he asked for Star Trek fans to volunteer to work on the film. Filmmaking is a very professional business, and technicians are deeply trained to work the technology of filmmaking. But these enthusiastic volunteers from all over the world, from Argentina, from the Philippines, from Norway, and from Poland, and from England, and from Canada, all converged on that small town. I can't remember the name of the town. And he called me and said, we're going to be filming this. And, or he called my agent, and he negotiated a deal and said, we're going to pay you what you get paid, and would you like to do this role? I looked at the script. It was a wonderful script. How many of you have seen Time, World Enough and Time? A good number, a sprinkling of you.
Yeah.
That was the script, and I flew over there and worked on it, but it was not the easiest way to film, because a fan crew is full of enthusiasm and energy, but they're not professional. And at the end of the day, you usually get your call for the next morning. And the call I had was 10 o'clock in the morning, which I thought was nice because we filmed late, so I could sleep later. But the next morning, a fan is at my hotel door knocking at 6 a.m. in the morning. I answered the door and he says, I'm here to pick you up for today's shoot. And I said, no, they told me my call is for 10 o'clock. And he says, well, we're all set to start shooting right now. And then I go to this, I quickly shower and get myself together, and he drives me to the set. And it takes forever and a day to get set up. And the director says, action, but the sound isn't operating, or the lights kind of flicker, And it was a very difficult way of working. But I'm an actor. They paid, so there I was.
One more thing. Is Brad here?
Yes, he is. I don't know where he is. He might be out there. Are you out there, Brad?
Somewhere.
but he's here.
Yay!
He's the other half. I could not do conventions without him. I've reached that point in life where carrying luggage becomes real. And going to the airport and dealing with all the hassle and the canceled flights or delayed flights, he does all that for me. And I just sit there. If it's going to be a long wait, in the restaurant and nibble at something, I could not do conventions without him. He makes life possible. Yes, Brad thanks you for asking about it.
He works hard.
Hi, Mr. George.
Yes.
I should say thanks for signing my photo yesterday of Disney's Twilight Zone ride.
Who was that imposter?
I wanted to ask a fairly benign question that's not really related to any of your roles, but I did want to say, do you like to cook? And what is your favorite part of the culinary arts and the experience of cooking?
I used to love cooking. Brad won't let me in the kitchen. He's taken over the cooking for our family, and he's very temperamental. I'm the easygoing, nice-hearted, friendly, guy, and I'm too accommodating to Brad's temperamental insistence on doing it his way. So, as much as I love cooking, I have my own personal cook.
Thank you, sir.
You're a nosy guy.
I'm running.
Over here.
Yes, hello, George. Hi. Glad you could make it. And
Believe me, I am very glad I could make it here.
I know that you are planning on going to the Star Trek cruise that's coming up next year.
Yes, I am. It's going to be good fun. How many of you are thinking of going?
Yeah.
There's a hand. Oh, all the cruisers are way up front.
Yeah, I'm also planning on going to that. I've had my reservations for it, and really kind of sad that it got pushed back. But hopefully by February, they'll have figured out, even if COVID's still.
Well, I believe in the science, and if everybody cooperated, we would be able to be that. Thank you. Star Trek people are intelligent people, but there are some people that have no intelligence and are suicidal. I just can't understand them. And when they say they're not going to be vaccinated, their reasons are ridiculous. They heard somebody tell them, or I don't feel like it. We live by science. I mean, if I had a ball and I let go, it'll fall down. It won't float around. But there are people apparently that believe that some things can go against science. So yes, let's all go with science and the guidance and the very sage advice of the medical people. Yes.
George, thank you very much for being here for all of us today. My question involves the character Zulu, and there's so much.
It's pronounced Sulu, the Sulu Sea. Look at the map, right near the Philippines, S-U-L-U. Zulu is Africa. The Zulu tribe, lean, tall, and very elegant-looking African people. So there's a difference between Sulu and Zulu. You can see the difference.
With so much creative storytelling now that exists with all the streaming services, and I'm wondering if you'd be willing to do a Sulu comeback, and there's so much wonderful.
I am more than willing, eager, and anxious. It's up to the studios, though. They are the ones that finance it. So do write to them, and you can tell them George Takei is eager and willing and prepared and enthusiastic.
We want to see a Captain comeback. That's what we want. Captain Sulu comeback.
Would you believe a Captain Sulu? I've changed the color of my hair. I should be an admiral.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Before my question, I just wanted to say that growing up as a closeted teen surrounded by a lot of straight people, seeing you come out in 2005 and sort of be that vocal about it really helped make me feel like I wasn't the crazy one, I wasn't the strange and alone one. So just on behalf of all of my LGBT friends, I wanted to thank you for all of the activism and vocal work you do to help normalize it, and it means the world. So thank you for that.
I know how you felt, because when I was growing up, I felt the very same way. In fact, there were bullies that picked on people that they call sissies. I wasn't a sissy. I was a runner and a member of the track team, but I knew what I felt inside. But the thing is, when I was a child, 5 years old, because of the way I looked, the government put me in those barbed wire prison camps. We were considered the enemy. They categorized us as the enemy. I mean, a 5-year-old kid, and my brother was 4 years old, and my baby sister was an infant. And yet, the government behaved in an absolutely irrational way. Things like that happened. But then the war ended. I went back into American society. But from the time I was about 10 or 11, I got the realization that I felt inside differently. I looked differently, and we were punished. And I thought Bobby was the cutest boy. Great big thick eyelashes, and he had the sweetest smile. And Richard, I guess he came from a poor family, because his mother dressed him in clothes that were too tight for him, too small for him. And I noticed when he hunkered down to play marbles, his t-shirt would run up and his jeans would be pushed down, because he'd be crouched. And I saw the cleavage. And that was exciting to me. But the other boys didn't seem to feel that way. And I thought I was the only one who felt that way. And as I got a little bit older, and I was in middle school, there was this girl, Monica, who prematurely was blossoming forth in full womanhood. And the boys would say, "Wow, Monica's hot." I thought Monica was nice. But why are they getting so hot and bothered about it? And so I started feeling differently. And I didn't like to feel differently, because we looked differently. We were punished when I was a kid. And so I tried to hide that. And I acted like the other boys, and I joined them in saying, "Wow, Monica's hot." And when the boys started dating, I dated girls just like they did. And I spent most of my life closeted, as we say. It was a story that took 68 years in the making. And at 68, I came out for the first time. It was really torturous to me because I was an activist. You know, I was active in the civil rights movement. I marched with Dr. King. I did a civil rights musical called Fly Blackbird. During the Vietnam War, I was in the peace movement and organizing rallies and so forth. So I was an activist on every issue of the times, but the issue most personal to me, an issue that was my issue, I was silent because I didn't want to be punished. And that was what was happening. When I was growing up, it was illegal. And then when I started going to bars, I was told that the police, the law enforcement officers, raided bars for people just enjoying an evening at your neighborhood bar. And I knew that that was wrong. We weren't doing anything wrong, and yet we were being punished and made illegal. But I stayed closeted. And as an activist, it was the most torturous thing to see others who were sacrificing everything. And I didn't want to sacrifice my career. I loved my acting career. I worked hard to develop it. But again, when I was a teenager, my heartthrob was a blonde, good-looking, athletic actor named Tab Hunter. Some of you, I hear you recognize the name. Wasn't he good-looking?
Yes.
He was the lead in almost every Warner Brothers movie. Damn Yankees, Battle Cry. He was a popular, big box office movie star. But then one of the scandal sheets exposed him as gay. And suddenly he disappeared. Warner Brothers dropped his contract, and he was gone. That was an object lesson for me. If I wanted to be an actor, I could not let the world know how I felt inside. So I remained in that closet until I was 68 years old, when I said, I've got to free myself from this. I was imprisoned in barbed wire prison camps as a child, and I put myself into an invisible prison camp, barbed wire prison camp, keeping myself in prison until I was 68.
So you had enough.
I'm out now. And roaring. And what brought me out then was something amazing happened in California. By that time, in 2005, or in 2003, the state of Massachusetts got marriage equality. That was through the courts. Their state Supreme Court ruled for marriage equality. In California, in 2005, something unheard of, unimagined happened. The people's representatives, the legislature, both the Senate and the Assembly, passed the marriage equality bill. It was going to be an amazing situation on the Atlantic coast, Massachusetts, and on the West Coast in California, marriage equality. But in California, our legislature, in Massachusetts, it was through the courts. But for us, it was the people's representative passing the marriage equality law. It required only one more vote, the signature of the governor of the state of California, who happened to be a movie star at that time. You know who he is? Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's the way I say his name. Schwarzenegger. He was an evil man. When the bill landed on his desk, he played to his base, the right wing, and he vetoed it. And I was so angry that I had to come out. And that's when I came out and spoke to the press for the first time as a gay man and blasted Schwarzenegger's veto of the marriage equality bill. And since then, I have been loud, bold, and out, campaigning all over. Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you for your work on Star Trek. When I was younger, I was one of those keychain kids who would come home and their parents were at work, so I just watched a lot of TV. And in most of those things, you know, good guys are born good and bad guys are born bad, and they have to duke it out all the time. I started watching Star Trek when I was about 12, and it made me realize that you don't have to be born some amazing person. It's something that you work on every day by making good decisions and caring about other people and thinking about the greater good. So I just wanted to say thank you, and that even after all those years, it made a really big impact on my life.
Bravo, bravo, congratulations. And it's not just you. We all, you know, until I was 68, I was closeted, feeling very guilty inside. I mean, some of those people that were out and activists and campaigning for equality for LGBT people were making sacrifices. And here I felt selfish, keeping that to myself and not sacrificing as they did and campaigning, because I'm an activist and I felt very guilty. But all of us can contribute to making this a better society. And you said it, to be able to empathize with people, to be a humanist and contribute to making this society better. We all can do that and make America a better society. And by America being a better society, the other countries in the world will start emulating us. So thank you for your time. Yes.
Hi, it's an honor to speak to you. I've been a fan viewer since the 70s, and for the past 16 years or so, I've enjoyed your appearances on the Howard Stern Show.
Oh my.
You promoting Megacon on the show is the reason I'm here.
Oh, I'm glad I mentioned it. Thank you, Howard.
My question is, what has been your favorite part of being on the Howard Stern Show?
Actually, I first went on the Howard Stern Show reluctantly because I had heard about Howard Stern. I'd never listened to the show, but I was doing a play in New York called The Wash, and when you're doing a play, the publicist for the play gives you your assignment to promote the show. And so, I was doing the play and I had this responsibility, and they gave me this address on Madison Avenue. So I went there and to do the interview, and they asked me to wait in the waiting room. So I sat down and I was looking at magazines, and they had this radio playing. And it was the most disgusting conversation. I said to the other guy waiting in the same waiting room, why can't they get some nice music? That is really sleazoid. And he said, that's the show we're waiting to go on. And just then, the receptionist came and said, Mr. Stern is ready for you. And she ushered me over. This was in 1991. And I walked in, and here's this skinny, wild-haired guy with glasses. And I said, good morning. And he says, Oh, you have a deep voice. Anyone with a voice that deep has to have a big dog.
No, he didn't. Howard said that.
I said, are we on the air? And he said, yep. And I said, oh my. You know, it's an ordinary phrase. Don't you all say it all the time? I've been doing that, you know, when something like that happens, I say, oh my. Well, Howard had it on tape. And so from then on, whether I'm there or not, when someone says something outrageous or does something outrageous, he presses a button and my voice comes in. Oh my. He made it my signature. And many of you have taken the cue and asked me to sign my photo. Oh my, George Takei.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yes, they asked me that.
That's awesome.
So that's how it happened. But Howard has an amazing listenership. And, oh, I hear music. Is that a cue? I think it's a cue. I'll talk to you later. I'll finish the story later for you. They want me all. It's getting louder. I love you all.